TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. Israel intensifies its military operations against Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip as the Palestinian terror group continues to refuse any viable hostage release deal. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu asserts that the idea, as if a Palestinian state would lead to peace, was absurd, saying that Israel had already tried that in Gaza. U.S. President Donald Trump voices confidence of a looming agreement with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Jerusalem's Security Cabinet is deliberating future steps regarding the IDF's war intensity vis-à-vis the Islamist Hamas and its affiliated terror groups in the Gaza Strip. Since operational maneuvers started, 3 IDF divisions have struck over 1,800 terror targets across the Gaza Strip, with hundreds of terror operatives reportedly eliminated, including dozens of Hamas commanders, mid-level operatives, and officials. In the northern Gaza Strip, the 252nd Division has escalated pressure on both Hamas and the Iranian proxy, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, particularly in the Daraj Tufah neighborhood, while the southern Gaza Strip, the 36th Division, is operating in the Rafah area and the Molag corridor. In parallel, the Gaza Division is also operating in the Rafah area in the towns of Shabura and Tel Sultan. Meanwhile, Qatari broker negotiations between the Islamist Hamas and Israel have failed to bear fruit since the Islamist terror group continues to raise demands which are unacceptable for Israel. The latest Hamas proposal includes an offer for the release of all 59 hostages from Hamas captivity in exchange for the release of thousands of incarcerated terror operatives, many of whom have blood on their hands, a complete withdrawal of the IDF from the Gaza Strip, and a ceasefire for 5 years' time, which essentially would grant Hamas the capacity to rearm and prepare for a next round of war, and will maintain the terror group's grip over the devastated Palestinian enclave.
Hamas are ready to give all the hostages back in exchange of number of prisoners, but with conditions that probably Israel not accepting, and Israel focusing on the hostages without a clear end for the war. So when you don't have like the common objective, a common goal between the parties, I believe the opportunities become very thin. But we are trying to push, and do our best.
It is important to highlight that while the Israeli leadership in Jerusalem remains steadfast in its demands to ensure an end to Hamas's military and governing capabilities in the Gaza Strip, internal and external pressures are seemingly mounting. On the one hand, the majority of the families of hostages in Hamas captivity are genuinely desperate for an immediate deal that would bring about the release of their loved ones, irrespective of long-term consequences related to Israel's national security interests.
This week, the state of Israel yet again faced difficult days where names of fallen soldiers were released to the media. Our hearts are crushed with pain. Soldiers are being sent to fight a war with no end, no purpose, and no discussion regarding the day after the war. An agreement can be signed tomorrow morning to bring back all our children. An entire nation has been deceived. They tell us that military pressure will bring the hostages back, when in fact, all it does is kill them.
Alongside mounting domestic pressure calling for an immediate release of all Israeli hostages, international efforts to have Israel provide the population of Gaza with humanitarian aid are mounting, including from Washington, where U.S. President Donald Trump confirmed that he is pushing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to resolve the humanitarian plight of Palestinian non-combatants.
Coming into Gaza, when you spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu the other day, did that come up at all about access and humanitarian aid going into the Strip?
No, when Gaza came up, and I said, we got to be good to Gaza. Those people are suffering. We got to be good to Gaza. We're going to take care of them. There's a very big need for medicine, food and medicine, and we're taking care of it.
In terms of like opening up more access points, or
very hard.
Pushing the Israelis?
We are.
To open up more access
very
points?
Hard to get food and medicine into Gaza.
How did the Prime Minister respond to that?
Well, felt well about it.
It is important to explain that the Islamist Hamas has hoarded much of the humanitarian aid that entered into the Gaza Strip and is blatantly exploiting growing demands by the Gazan population, to which it is selling basic commodities with a surplus of up to 1,400%. Meanwhile, during a JNS International Policy Summit in Jerusalem, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu asserted on the Palestinian issue that the idea as if a Palestinian state would lead to peace was absurd, saying further that Israel had already tried that in Gaza. According to the Israeli premier, Hamas in Gaza will be crushed and the Palestinian Authority won't be there so as not to replace one regime that seeks to annihilate us with another that wants the same thing. Netanyahu continued by addressing Iran's nuclear aspirations amid ongoing nuclear negotiations between the United States and the Islamic Republic.
The reason Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons is because successive governments under my prime ministership have led successive actions, which I won't discuss here with the same, forgive me, with the same detail. Over the years, and that set them back about 10 years from where they thought they'd be. 10 years ago, they already thought they'd have a nuclear arsenal. They don't, but we delayed them, but we didn't stop them. So they moved very far on enrichment. They're trying to move on weaponry. And the question is now what to do.
Prime Minister Netanyahu went on to highlight President Donald Trump's voiced commitment to ensure that Iran would never attain a nuclear weapon.
Happily, we have a president in Washington who's committed, as he says, and as he said to me many times, including just recently, we can't allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. And I said, I absolutely believe that, devoted a good chunk of my life to prevent that. But there are two ways to do it. One is to get a deal that would prevent them from doing that by dismantling their nuclear infrastructure. You have to dismantle their nuclear infrastructure. And that means not that they will not enrich uranium, but that they will not have the capacity to enrich uranium, which means you destroy the centrifuges, you remove, of course, the nuclear material that is already enriched, and there are a few other things that you have to do, but that's the crux of it. The real deal that works is a deal which removes Iran's capacity to enrich uranium for nuclear weapons.
It is interesting to know that senior Iranian officials have lashed out over Prime Minister Netanyahu's remarks, including Tehran's top diplomat and chief negotiator, Abbas Araghchi, who wrote in a post on X, quote, Israel's fantasy that it can dictate what Iran may or may not do is so detached from reality that it hardly merits a response. What is striking, however, is how brazenly Netanyahu is dictating what President Trump can and cannot do in his diplomacy with Iran. The Iranian foreign minister went on to claim that Netanyahu had allies in the, quote, failed Biden team in a seeming attempt to turn the Trump administration against Israel. Araghchi then insisted, quote, Iran is strong and confident enough in its capabilities to thwart any attempt by malicious external actors to sabotage its foreign policy or dictate its course. We can only hope our U.S. counterparts are equally steadfast. It is important to know that while sources familiar with the talks have highlighted the remaining gaps between the demands of the Trump administration and the Ayatollah regime, Nevertheless, President Donald Trump himself insisted, after voicing frustration over Russia's refusal to engage vis-a-vis Ukraine, that he was confident in prospects for a deal with Iran.
On the Iran situation, I think we're doing very well. I think a deal's going to be made there. That's going to happen. Pretty sure it's going to happen. We'll have something without having to start dropping bombs all over the place.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. And as the end of the month is fast approaching, I would like to encourage you to support TV7 Israel, which is a non-profit organization with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. In tandem, I would like to thank TV7 Israel's family of supporters, as your steadfast support allows us to produce content that truly matters, impacting millions of viewers worldwide. Lastly, keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hessen, wishing you a Shavua Mevorach. God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.